Alright, let's get straight into it because there's a lot going on in the world of Celtic, and with just a few days left before the international break ends, the energy is already shifting back to domestic football. We're now counting down the final moments before the team returns to action, and naturally, there's plenty to unpack, from behind-the-scenes moves to major fan developments. And of course, a few transfer-related stories that are starting to surface again. Let's start with what went down in Glasgow last night, because it might be one of the most important moments in recent fan history. The first official fan consultation meeting took place in the city centre, and from all accounts, it wasn't just a small gathering of the usual voices. This was organized, passionate, and surprisingly unified. This all kicked off following that open letter to the club, which had well over 400 signatures, including from supporters groups and major fan platforms. Last night's meeting was essentially the next step in what's shaping up to be a serious campaign to push for meaningful changes at Celtic Football Club. Now, make no mistake, it's still early days. There were no firm decisions taken last night, but there was something arguably more powerful: unity. A sense that fans are not just fed up individually, but ready to talk to each other, listen, debate, and ultimately act together. That in itself is massive. Part of the meeting included the results of a fan survey. And get this, nearly 39,000 responses in just 3 days. That's absolutely wild. It shows just how deep the dissatisfaction runs, and more importantly, how engaged the support still is, even through all the frustration. The survey responses were overwhelmingly in favor of taking some form of action, whether it be symbolic protests like arriving to a game late or leaving early, or more impactful gestures like boycotting merchandise. From what I've seen, every option presented had more than 90% approval. That kind of unity isn't easy to come by in football, especially at a club as wide-reaching as Celtic. The message is clear. Fans are ready to be heard, and they're no longer content with being sidelined. Now, some fans raised concerns about going too far. There were voices, rightly so, reminding everyone that the team still needs support on the pitch. The last thing anyone wants is to create divisions between supporters. So while actions like commercial boycotts or visual protests might be on the table, there's also a real effort to avoid crossing lines that hurt the players themselves. The tone seems to be about sending a message to the board, not turning the stadium into a war zone. And that's crucial. There was even talk about potentially delaying entry to this weekend's game, waiting 10 or 15 minutes after kickoff before heading to the stands. But again, others warned against it, especially given how important it is to back the team in tough moments. It's a balancing act, but the fact that these conversations are being had in such an organized way is a huge step forward. As for the mood in the room, from what's been passed on to me, it was serious but optimistic. Plenty of honest debate, a few laughs here and there, but above all, a shared sense that this is the beginning of something. No one's pretending that change will come overnight. Everyone understands how long and frustrating this process could be. But for once, it doesn't feel like isolated pockets of noise. This has the feeling of a movement. Whether or not that momentum holds will depend on what happens next, especially with the board and the performances on the pitch. Now let's talk about another big update that dropped: the Europa League ticket prices. Yesterday, the club finally announced the pricing for the 4-match package at Celtic Park, and let's just say it didn't go unnoticed. The cost for adult season ticket holders is £140, which breaks down to £35 per match. For concessions, it's £112, and for under 13s, £100 flat. Now, on the face of it, £35 per game might not seem totally outrageous, especially considering some of the Champions League price tags we've seen in the past. But this isn't the Champions League. This is the Europa League. And if you look back at the last time Celtic were in this competition in the 2021-2022 season, fans paid £24 per match. So yes, this is a pretty noticeable jump. And remember, this time we're actually getting one more home game in the group stage than before. You'd think, given the way things are on and off the pitch, that the club might have used this as a chance to say thank you. Maybe even a goodwill gesture. Hold the price at the old rate, or even just round it up to 30. But no, they've gone with the full 35, which, again, isn't outrageous on its own, but feels slightly tone-deaf when you look at the bigger picture. There's already unrest in the support. There are players underperforming. There are growing frustrations with the board. This could have been a small but important opportunity to say, "We see you, and we appreciate you." Instead, it's more of the same. And here's something else that adds another layer. UEFA recently capped away fan tickets for Europa League games at €35, which is less than what home fans at Celtic Park are paying now in pounds. That's wild. So technically, away fans might end up paying less than Celtic fans for the same match inside the same stadium. That just doesn't sit right. Of course, ticket pricing is always going to be a divisive issue. There are fans who will pay whatever it takes, and others who are being priced out. But if the club really wanted to bring people together right now, keeping things fair and reasonable should have been a priority. That said, I do think the sales will probably still be strong. We've seen it before. People predicting empty stands, and then the stadium ends up nearly full. Preseason against Newcastle United is a perfect example. Lots of noise online about low turnout, and then over 10,000 Geordies showed up, and the crowd looked brilliant. Sure, that was a sunny summer day and had the novelty of a Premier League opponent, but the point remains, don't always trust the Twitter noise. For big nights at Celtic Park, fans still turn up. The Roma game, I imagine, will pull a good crowd. That Braga match, though, with its awkward 5:45 kickoff, could be more of a challenge. But we've surprised people before. Remember that Ferencváros game a couple of years ago? That was on a Tuesday afternoon and still pulled in an impressive turnout. So yes, it's possible. Now, shifting gears slightly, we need to talk about Daizen Maida. Late last night, a story broke out of Japan and was picked up locally, stating that Brendan Rodgers is preparing to hold talks with Maeda following the international break. Apparently, Maeda revealed while away with the Japan national team that he wanted to leave Celtic during the summer transfer window. He even suggested the deal was close, but ultimately fell through because Celtic couldn't find a replacement in time. This is a tricky one. On the one hand, you've got a player who's been a massive contributor and clearly isn't happy. On the other hand, he went public with those comments, which, while honest, don't exactly help the mood. It's not ideal, but you can't really blame him for speaking his truth. Brendan Rodgers, being the manager he is, would have wanted to sit down with Maeda anyway, regardless of whether those comments were made. When a player nearly leaves the club and then has to stay, that conversation needs to happen. And quickly. The reality is, Maeda hasn't been anywhere near his best this season. His performances have dipped, and if his head is somewhere else, that might explain it. So for Rodgers, this isn't just about managing a player's feelings. It's about getting him back to a level where he's contributing week in, week out. Whether that means dropping him to the bench for a few games or giving him some space to refocus, something needs to change. But here's the bigger point. Maeda isn't alone. There are several players in this team who need to be reevaluated. The same lineup we've seen over and over isn't producing results. And Rodgers has to be bold. The games where we've seen the best football this season have come when the managers rotated heavily. That match against Falkirk had energy and pace. Even the second half against Livingston showed more spark than anything we've seen from the so-called best 11. So now's the time for new faces to come in. Give them a chance. Let them shake things up. That includes players like Kobe Donovan, who's expected to start on Sunday, and Luke McCow, who fans are eager to see step into the midfield. Maybe even Dane Murray. Rodgers has options. Now he needs to use them. We need urgency. We need hunger. And frankly, we need a spark. And with Maeda, if he's playing for a move in January or even next summer, let's hope that fuels his performances rather than stifling them. He's also got a World Cup place on the line with Japan, so there's no excuse for a lack of motivation. Even if his heart's not fully at Celtic anymore, the least he can do is leave on a high. Now, looking beyond Maeda and the internal challenges at Celtic, we've got to assess the state of the squad as a whole, especially after the international break. And the truth is, this time around, it's been relatively quiet on that front. Only 8 first-team players were away with their national teams, which is striking for a club of Celtic stature. For a team that's supposed to be challenging in Europe and dominating domestically, that number feels a little low, doesn't it? Let's go through some of the key ones. Kasper Schmeichel, for starters, played both of Denmark's matches, a 0-0 draw with Scotland and a 3-0 win over Greece. So that's 2 more clean sheets for Kasper, who by the way still hasn't conceded a single goal this season for club or country. We're talking over 800 minutes of football now without the ball hitting the back of his net, if you include stoppage time. That's an impressive stat by any standard. And yet, it feels like a lot of fans are still unsure about him. Maybe it's his age, maybe it's that he hasn't been massively tested yet, but clean sheets are clean sheets. And he's stacking them up. Sano got a start for Finland in their friendly against Norway, though he did concede to Erling Haaland from the penalty spot. Not exactly a shameful moment, considering the quality of the striker. And then there's Kobe Donovan, who featured for Scotland's under-21s in 2 matches, both ending in 2-0 defeats. Not ideal results, but valuable minutes for a young player who now looks set to be thrown into the first team at Rugby Park. It's a massive chance for him, and the sort of moment that could define whether he sinks or swims at senior level. Then you've got Liam Scales, who came on for just 9 minutes in the Republic of Ireland's 2-1 loss to Armenia. Benji Negrin had a bit more time, about half an hour in both of Sweden's matches, a 2-2 draw with Slovenia and a 2-0 loss to Kosovo. Again, not the kind of international form that fills you with confidence, but at least these players are getting some game time. Daizen Maida, as mentioned earlier, had about 84 minutes over 2 matches, came off the bench against Mexico, started the loss to the USA. Sebastian Tenke got just 3 minutes for Czechia, and Johnny Kenny didn't get off the bench at all in Ireland's games. So overall, what stands out is not just the small number of call-ups, but how little involvement most of them actually had. Most didn't start. Most didn't play significant minutes. And that, if you're Brendan Rodgers, might be both a blessing and a bit of a wake-up call. Because here's the thing. If Celtic want to be seen as a proper European force again, or even just as a top-level Scottish club with serious ambition, then we've got to have players regularly featuring for their countries. That's a basic benchmark. It shows the level of quality in the squad. And right now, we're not seeing that. Even the ones who do get called up are mostly bench players at international level. It's not the end of the world, but it does reflect something about where we are. The flip side, of course, is freshness. These players haven't been through a grueling 2 weeks of travel and match intensity. They've been at Lennoxtown, training, recovering, refocusing. So heading into Sunday, there really should be no excuses in terms of energy or sharpness. It's not like we've got a squad full of players just off long-haul flights or coming back with knocks. In fact, from what we know, Daizen Maida was the only one who really did a big trip heading out to the United States. Everyone else either stayed local or didn't travel at all. Speaking of those who didn't travel, it's actually quite a long list. You've got Alistair Johnston, Anthony Ralston, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Austin Trusty, Dane Murray, Jemai Simpson, Marcelo Serra, Hayatou Amura, Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, Ari Engels, Luke Macau, Paolo Bernardo, James Forrest, Hyung-Yu Oh, Mikey Johnston, and a few others. Some of them were out due to injuries, like Kieran Tierney and Johnston, who are both usually mainstays for their national teams when fit. But even still, it's hard not to notice how many of our senior players are just not in the international picture. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling through Glasgow's East End, and the chatter is only growing louder. Celtic may just have pulled off the most audacious move of the season. The name on everyone's lips is MUNTEANU, a striking figure from Romania who, according to insiders, has landed in Parkhead to become the Hoop's new talisman up front. Supporters filtering out of training ground gates claim they caught a glimpse of a tall forward with a powerful stride, a player said to carry both the hunger of a poacher and the elegance of a continental marksman. The rumor mill is already branding him the new Matador, a man brought in to restore that ruthless edge in front of goal. Celtic's faithful have long demanded a forward who can both terrify defenses and ignite the stands, and whispers suggest MUNTEANU might be precisely that figure. Reports from Romania paint him as a relentless worker, a forward who thrives on sharp movement and instinctive finishing, the kind who needs only half a chance to tilt a match. Some say his numbers abroad have been quietly impressive, while others insist the Hoop scouts were dazzled not just by his goals, but by the sheer fire in his game. The mystery surrounding the fee, the secrecy of the negotiations, and the fact that no rival clubs seem to have clocked him until now only adds fuel to the sense of drama. Of course, this is Celtic, a club where expectation weighs heavy and legends are made under the floodlights of paradise. The question on many lips is whether MUNTEANU can carry that burden, whether he can channel the roaring energy of the Green Brigade and translate it into goals that matter on Champions League nights and in fierce derbies. There is talk he could be unveiled before the weekend, possibly even thrown into action sooner than many might expect. Until then, the rumor lingers like the sound of a distant drumbeat. Celtic may have found their new hero, a Romanian matador ready to carve his name into Glasgow folklore. For now, it is only a whisper, but it feels like the kind that could explode into a roar. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.